The first time Ambassador Lyrith of the Galactic Confederation encountered a human, she thought they were playing some kind of joke. The bipedal creature before her looked so vulnerable. No natural armor, no claws, no venom sacs, not even decent reflexes by galactic standards. Just soft pink skin wrapped around a fragile skeleton. The human delegation stood there in their oddly formal attire, smiling with their flat teeth exposed. A gesture that would signal imminent attack in most civilized systems. "This can't possibly be the species that destroyed the Krallic battle fleet," she whispered to her aide. That was 20 standard cycles ago. How naive they had all been. The vast observation window aboard the Confederation diplomatic vessel, Harmonious Exchange, offered an unparalleled view of Earth as it rotated slowly below. From this distance, it looked peaceful. Blue oceans, swirling white clouds, patches of green and brown landmass. Ambassador Lyrith's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as she stared down at humanity's cradle. "Beautiful, isn't it?" The voice came from behind her, steady and warm. Commander Chen walked up beside the ambassador, her uniform crisp despite the 18-hour diplomatic marathon they'd just concluded. Humans had such remarkable endurance. The commander stood a full head shorter than Lyrith, yet somehow managed to project an aura that made the room feel smaller. "Indeed," Lyrith answered, her translator converting her harmonic tones into human speech. "Hard to believe such a lovely world could produce." She stopped herself. "Monsters," Chen finished with a smile. "You can say it, Ambassador. We've heard worse." Lyrith's skin flushed a deep purple with embarrassment. "I meant no offense, Commander." "None taken. We know how we appear to the Confederation." The truth was, humans didn't look like monsters at all. That was the problem. They looked harmless, fragile even. The greatest predators in the galaxy had evolved to advertise their deadliness through bright colors, imposing physiques, or obvious natural weapons. It was the universal language of "stay away." Humans had none of these warning signs. Nothing about their appearance suggested their true nature. "The treaty will be finalized tomorrow," Lyrith said, changing the subject. "The Confederation Council is pleased with the terms." "Is Earth," Commander Chen replied. "Though some back home feel we're giving too much away." Lyrith's secondary heart skipped a beat. The current treaty already gave humans access to 17 star systems and technological exchange rights that many council members had protested vigorously. What more could these creatures want? "Perhaps it would help if I understood your people better," Lyrith ventured. "The council has extensive biological and psychological profiles, of course, but they seem incomplete." Chen laughed, a sound that still unsettled Lyrith despite years of human contact. "That's because you're trying to understand us through your evolutionary framework. You classify species as prey or predator. We're both, and neither." The human turned away from Earth's blue sphere to face Lyrith directly. "Let me tell you a story from our history. It might explain things better than any scientific profile." Lyrith settled her bulk more comfortably. Humans did love their stories. 300 years ago, before we achieved spaceflight, a child fell into an enclosure containing a large predator called a gorilla. The gorilla could have killed the child instantly. It was 5 times stronger than an adult human. Instead, something unexpected happened. Chen paused, her dark eyes fixed on Lyrith. "Our media recorded everything. The entire world watched as the gorilla protected the child until help arrived. The predator showed mercy." Lyrith asked, confused by the relevance. "No," Chen said. "The gorilla acted according to its nature. The interesting part was what happened next. Our species became divided over whether the gorilla should be killed for the safety of future visitors. Some argued for mercy, others for practicality. And we killed it. Not out of cruelty or fear, though there was both, but because we determined it was necessary. We mourned afterward. Many humans wept for the gorilla. Some protested, but we did what we believed had to be done." Lyrith's translator struggled to convey the complex harmonics of her confusion. You're saying humans are contradictory. I'm saying we contain multitudes. We can love what we destroy and destroy what we love. We can weep for our enemies while pushing the button that ends them. We can write poetry about the beauty of a world we're strip mining. A chill ran through Lirith's fluid-filled spine. The report from the Kralik incident flashed in her memory. The human vessels, outgunned and outnumbered, had transmitted messages of peace, even as they maneuvered into a formation that resulted in the annihilation of the entire Kralik fleet. The surviving communications officer had reported the humans apologizing as they'd fired. Tomorrow's treaty isn't just about trade routes and technology exchange. Chen continued, turning back to the window. It's about giving the Confederation time to understand what you're dealing with, because if you push us too far. She left the thought unfinished. Is that a threat, Commander? Lirith's voice gained a hard edge. Just the opposite, Ambassador. It's a warning. From a friend. Chen's face softened. I want peace. Most humans do. But you need to understand that our capacity for violence isn't driven by simple predatory instinct. It's a choice, one we prefer not to make. The ship's communication system chimed, announcing the arrival of the Earth diplomatic team for the pre-signing reception. Commander Chen straightened her uniform. They're waiting for us, she said. Shall we join them? As they walked toward the reception hall, Lirith's mind raced. The Confederation had been approaching humans all wrong, studying them as either predators or prey, looking for consistent behavioral patterns. But Chen was suggesting something far more terrifying, that humans operated outside that binary entirely. They were conscious agents of their own evolution, unpredictable by design. The doors to the reception hall slid open, revealing a room full of smiling humans in formal attire, mingling with nervous representatives from 17 different species. Glasses clinked, laughter echoed, all seemingly normal diplomatic pleasantries. But now, watching them with new understanding, Lirith saw something else entirely. A room full of beings who could weep for you, write songs about your beauty, and then extinguish your entire species if they deemed it necessary, all while feeling genuinely sorry about it. And tomorrow, the Confederation would officially welcome them into the galaxy. Lirith moved through the reception with practiced diplomatic grace, but her inner thoughts churned like the storms visible on Earth's surface below. The humans, with their strange flat teeth exposed in those disarming smiles, conversed easily with representatives of species that had been mortal enemies just decades ago. How did they do it? How did they make the Vex and the Saurians stand in the same room without bloodshed? She observed Commander Chen working the room. The human officer moved with efficient purpose, touching shoulders, clasping forearms, even engaging in the complex membrane flutter that passed for a greeting among the aquatic Nayari. Somehow, Chen knew all the cultural touchstones, all the right gestures. Impressive, aren't they? The voice belonged to Counselor That, the eldest member of the Confederation Diplomatic Court. The ancient Vesperian's translucent exoskeleton glowed faintly in the room's subdued lighting. Commander Chen has clearly studied our customs, Lirith acknowledged. That's mandibles clicked in the Vesperian equivalent of laughter. Not just Chen. Look around you. Every human in this room is doing the same thing. Adapting, learning, absorbing. Lirith scanned the reception. The counselor was right. Each human diplomat was engaged with different species, and each had modified their behavior accordingly. With the militant Draconians, they stood tall and made direct eye contact. With the hierarchical Polani, they kept their gaze lowered just so. With the telepathic Mindari, they maintained a respectful distance, while speaking clearly and focusing their thoughts. It's not just mimicry, that continued. That's what makes them dangerous. They actually understand. What do you mean? Lirith asked, though she already knew. Most species can learn to tolerate others. Humans adapt to them. That's compound eyes reflected the starlight from the observation window. 20 cycles ago, when they first contacted us, they could barely pronounce Confederation standard. Now they speak it better than some member species. They've learned our histories, our conflicts, our biology, our religions. Knowledge is not the same as understanding, Lilith countered. Precisely my point. Humans don't just know, they understand. They empathize. They can see the universe through our eyes. That's voice dropped lower. And then they use that understanding to get exactly what they want. Before Lilith could respond, she noticed something odd happening across the room. A small commotion had broken out near the refreshment area, where a young diplomatic aide from Earth, Sullivan, she recalled, was surrounded by 3 Kralik observers. The Kralik weren't officially part of the Confederation yet. Their presence here was a courtesy, a first step toward rehabilitation after their failed aggression against human colonies. Their inclusion had been Commander Chen's idea, a gesture of reconciliation that had impressed the Council. Now, however, the towering insectoids were chittering angrily, their blade-like forelimbs raised in what any species would recognize as a threatening posture. The young human stood his ground, seemingly unafraid despite being dwarfed by creatures evolved for war. Lilith moved quickly toward the confrontation, Vet following close behind. As they approached, they could hear the Kralik translator rendering their angry clicks into Confederation standard. "Dare display this abomination," one of them was saying. "This is deliberate provocation." Sullivan, a slender human with pale skin and russet hair, looked genuinely confused. "I assure you, no offense was intended. These are traditional Earth refreshments." Lilith looked at the display behind Sullivan. A variety of Earth foods were arranged on the table, including some kind of hexagonal structure containing an amber substance. "That," hissed the lead Kralik, pointing a bladed limb at the hexagonal object, "is a mockery of our fallen." Understanding dawned on Lilith. The structure resembled Kralik birthing chambers. The amber substance, what did humans call it? Honey, came from Earth insects that bore a superficial resemblance to the Kralik ancestral form. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. Other diplomats were turning to watch. The Kralik representative's wings were beginning to vibrate, a precursor to attack posture. Sullivan remained perfectly still. His face showed no fear, but something else Lilith couldn't quite identify. When he spoke again, his voice was soft, but carried clearly. "On Earth, we have insects called bees," he said. "They make honey, this sweet food, in structures called honeycombs. They've been part of human cuisine for thousands of years, long before we knew your species existed." The Kralik's translator rendered this, but the insectoids seemed unconvinced. Their agitation was growing. Lilith prepared to intervene, knowing that a diplomatic incident now could unravel years of careful negotiation. But then Sullivan did something unexpected. He slowly reached out toward the honeycomb, breaking off a small piece, and before anyone could stop him, he placed it in his mouth and ate it. The Kralik froze, their compound eyes fixed on the human's face. In their culture, consuming the substance of a birthing chamber would be unthinkable sacrilege. "This is not a statement about your people," Sullivan said after swallowing. "It's a gift from mine. On Earth, offering honey is a symbol of welcome, of sweetness in new beginnings. I thought, it would be a way to show respect for life, for creation. Things our species have in common." For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then, to everyone's shock, the lead Kralik extended a bladed limb, not in threat this time, but toward the honeycomb. With surprising dexterity, it broke off a fragment. The entire reception seemed to hold its breath as the Kralik brought the honey to its mandibles. After a momentary hesitation, it consumed the offering. Another long silence followed. Then the Kralik's translator crackled. "It is sweet," came the verdict. Not enthusiastic, but not hostile either. A simple acknowledgement. Across the room, Lilith noticed Commander Chen watching the exchange. Unlike everyone else, she didn't appear surprised or relieved. Instead, there was a slight smile on her face, as if everything had gone exactly as expected. "Did you see that?" That whispered to Lilith. The human didn't retreat, didn't call security, didn't even raise his voice. He diffused the situation. Lilith said, still processing what she'd witnessed. No, Vet's mandibles clicked softly. He turned a potential diplomatic crisis into an opportunity for connection. And he did it by understanding exactly what the Kralik needed. Not an apology, but a demonstration that their cultural sensitivities matter. The ancient counselor's exoskeleton dimmed slightly. Imagine what they could do if they decided to turn that understanding toward exploitation instead of harmony. Lilith watched as Sullivan and the Kralik representatives began a tentative conversation about Earth insects and Kralik ancestral forms. Somehow, offense had transformed into curiosity. Her gaze drifted back to Commander Chen, who had now joined a different group but was still observing Sullivan from across the room. When their eyes met, Chen raised her glass slightly in Lilith's direction, a human gesture of acknowledgement. And suddenly, Lilith understood what made humans truly terrifying. It wasn't their capacity for violence, though that was formidable. It was their adaptive intelligence combined with their empathic reach, their ability to understand others so completely that they could transform enemies into allies, conflicts into conversations. The diplomatic reception concluded without further incident, but Lilith couldn't shake the unease that had settled into her secondary nervous system. As the guests departed and maintenance drones quietly cleaned the reception hall, she found herself alone with Counselor Thet in the observation lounge. "You've seen the classified reports, haven't you?" Thet asked, his translucent exoskeleton now dimmed to near darkness in the low light. "About what really happened at Proxima Centauri." Lilith hesitated. "I've read the official account. The Kralik fleet violated human territory and was defeated." Defeated. Thet's mandibles clicked slowly. Such a sanitized word for what actually occurred. The ancient Vesperian moved closer to the window, gazing down at Earth. "I was on the emergency response team. I saw the wreckage. 7 dreadnoughts, 23 cruisers, over 100 support vessels, all destroyed by a human fleet 1/5 its size. Superior technology." Lilith began. "No," that cut her off. "Their ships were less advanced than the Kraliks. Their weapons less powerful. Their shields weaker." He turned to face her. "Do you know how they won?" Lilith shook her head. "They lost. Deliberately." Thet's compound eyes reflected the starlight. The humans positioned their fleet to draw the Kralik into a specific formation. Then they initiated their engines' self-destruct sequences. They sacrificed their own ships, with crews still aboard, to create a cascading wave of destructive energy that the Kralik couldn't escape. Lilith's primary heart stuttered. That's suicide." "Yes, and the humans didn't just accept it. They planned for it." Thet's voice had dropped to barely a whisper. The captain of the human flagship transmitted one final message before detonation. "I've replayed it 1,000 times, trying to understand." "Do you know what he said?" Lilith waited, dreading the answer. "We die so that Earth may live. Remember us." Thet's mandibles trembled slightly. Not angry, not hateful, just purposeful, as if their individual extinction was an acceptable price. A cold sensation spread through Lilith's fluid systems. "Why are you telling me this now?" "The treaty signing is hours away." "Because I've intercepted communications between Earth and their fleet positioned at the edge of our system. Encrypted transmissions, more than usual." "That proves nothing," Lilith countered, but uncertainty crept into her harmonics. "Perhaps not. But consider this. Why would Commander Chen insist on the Kralik being present at tomorrow's ceremony? The same species that attacked their colonies, that they destroyed so thoroughly." Before Lilith could formulate a response, her communication implant chimed. She accepted the incoming message, surprised to see Sullivan's face appear in her neural interface. "Ambassador, forgive the late hour," the young human said, his expression tense. "I need to speak with you, privately. It's about Commander Chen." Lilith exchanged glances with that. I'm with Counselor that now. Can it wait until morning? No, Sullivan replied firmly. It concerns tomorrow's ceremony. There's something you should know before. The transmission suddenly cut out, replaced by static. Sullivan. Lirith called, but there was no response. She turned to that. Something's wrong. The ship's general announcement system activated with a soft chime. Attention all diplomatic personnel. A Level 2 security protocol has been implemented due to a minor communications disruption. Please remain in your assigned quarters until further notice. Minor disruption. That's Mandibles clicked skeptically. They've never activated security protocols for communication issues before. Lirith moved quickly to the nearest data terminal and entered her ambassador's override. The screen remained blank for several seconds before flashing red with a denial message. Access restricted by order of CQRITWCHF. That's not possible, she whispered. My clearance supersedes security on diplomatic matters. The lights in the observation lounge suddenly dimmed, then switched to the purple emergency spectrum. Throughout the ship, the same was happening. Standard illumination fading, replaced by the eerie glow of backup systems. We need to find Sullivan, Lirith said, moving toward the exit. Whatever he knows. The doors to the observation lounge slid open before she reached them. Commander Chen stood in the doorway, her uniform as crisp as ever, but her expression unreadable. Behind her stood 4 human security officers, their hands resting casually on the weapons at their sides. Ambassador Lirith, Counselor that, Chen said with perfect politeness. I apologize for the disruption. We've detected an anomaly in the ship's systems that requires immediate attention. What kind of anomaly? That demanded. Chen smiled, the same disarming expression she'd worn throughout the diplomatic proceedings. But now, in the purple emergency lighting, it looked different to Lirith, like the expression of an apex predator. Nothing for you to worry about, Chen replied smoothly. But I'm afraid I'll need to escort you both to secure quarters until our technical team resolves the issue. I think not, Commander. Lirith stood her ground, her 4 eyes fixed on Chen. As Chief Diplomatic Officer on this vessel, I demand an explanation for this security breach. Something flickered across Chen's face, surprise, perhaps, at the ambassador's defiance. She recovered quickly, that unsettling smile returning. Very well. Chen nodded to her security team, who fanned out around the room's perimeter. We've detected unauthorized transmissions being sent from this ship to a location within Kralik space. Given their history with Earth, we're taking precautions. That's exoskeleton flared briefly. Kralik space. Impossible. They wouldn't risk another conflict. Unless they were provoked, Chen suggested. Or unless someone wanted to make it appear they were. The commander moved further into the room, the doors sliding shut behind her. She touched a control panel on her wrist, and the observation window's opacity changed, revealing the starfield beyond Earth's curve. A flicker of movement caught Lirith's attention, a small vessel departing the diplomatic ship, moving swiftly away. That's a human shuttle, Lirith observed, momentary confusion giving way to suspicion. Who authorized its departure during lockdown? Chen's smile faded. That would be Sullivan. Sullivan. But he just contacted me. Lirith began. Yes, I imagine he did. Chen interrupted. Probably told you something alarming about me or tomorrow's ceremony, didn't he? She sighed, looking genuinely disappointed. Sullivan is working for a faction back on Earth that opposes the treaty. They believe the Confederation is planning to use it to contain humanity's expansion. That moved forward, mandibles clicking rapidly. That's absurd. The treaty grants humans access to 17 systems, more than any new species has ever received. 17 carefully selected systems, Chen countered, with limited resources, positioned to keep us isolated from the major trade routes. She turned to Lirith. Or am I wrong, Ambassador? Before Lirith could respond, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared, and the emergency lighting shifted from purple to blood red. What was that? That demanded, his ancient form struggling to maintain balance. Chen checked her wrist display, her expression hardening. Weapons fire. Sullivan's shuttle just launched something toward Earth's orbital defense grid. As if on cue, the view outside the observation window lit up with streaks of energy as Earth's defenses activated, firing upon an unseen target. Seconds later, a blinding flash erupted near one of the orbital platforms. When the glare faded, the platform was drifting, clearly damaged. He's disabled the main communication hub, Chen stated flatly. Earth is now cut off from the Confederation network. Lirith's primary heart raced. Why would he? Her question was interrupted by a new alarm and an automated announcement. Alert. Multiple vessels detected entering the system. Configuration unknown. Alert. The starfield outside suddenly filled with ships, dozens of them, materializing from what must have been faster than light travel. Their design was unlike anything Lirith had seen before, neither human, nor Confederation, nor Kralik. Chen's security team tensed, weapons now drawn. But strangely, the commander herself appeared more resigned than alarmed. Right on schedule, she murmured. That surged forward, his ancient body moving with surprising speed. You knew. This is a human plot. Chen shook her head slowly, eyes fixed on the approaching fleet. Not human, counselor. And not a plot I willingly participated in. She turned to face them both, and for the first time, Lirith saw genuine fear in those human eyes. What Sullivan doesn't know, what almost no one knows, is that something found us before the Confederation did. Something that's been waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Something found you. Lirith repeated, her four eyes widening in disbelief. When? How? 50 Earth years ago. Chen replied, her attention split between the approaching fleet and her security team, who now surrounded them protectively rather than restrictively. Long before we achieved interstellar travel, they called themselves the Architects. They offered us technology, knowledge, a fast track to the stars. Her voice hardened. All they wanted in return was our help when the time came. The ship shuddered again as its defensive systems automatically engage. Outside, the unknown vessels, the Architects' ships, moved with impossible precision, forming a geometric pattern around the diplomatic vessel and Earth. Help with what? That demanded. Restructuring the galaxy, Chen said grimly. Starting with the Confederation. Lirith's translator struggled to capture the emotional complexity in Chen's voice. Regret, anger, determination, all layered together. Most of Earth rejected their offer, Chen continued, but a faction embraced it. They've been working in secret, preparing for this moment. She tapped her wrist display again, bringing up a holographic projection of Sullivan's shuttle. It was approaching the mysterious fleet. Sullivan isn't trying to stop the treaty. He's delivering the final piece they need. Complete schematics of the Confederation's defense networks. Information we gained through these negotiations. The reality of the situation hit Lirith like a gravity wave. The treaty was never your goal. No, Chen admitted. Not for Sullivan's faction, but for the rest of us. She hesitated, then squared her shoulders. I need to show you something. She accessed another control on her wrist device. The ship's communication system crackled to life, and a cascade of messages flooded in, hundreds of them, from every human settlement and vessel across 17 systems, all transmitting simultaneously on emergency channels. This is Admiral Park of Earth Defense Command. Architect vessels detected in sectors 7 through 19. All Confederation species enact protocol firewall immediately. Proxima colony to all ships. Architects attempting to breach planetary shields. Human fleet engaging. Confederation assistance requested. Terra Nova Station broadcasting Architect ship schematics and weapons analysis. Vulnerabilities identified. Transmitting now. Message after message poured in, each from human sources, each alerting the Confederation about the Architect presence and sharing tactical information. I don't understand. That said, his ancient body trembling with confusion. If humans allied with these architects, some did, Chen corrected. A minority. The rest of us have been planning for this day, since we discovered their true intentions. She looked up as the ship rocked from another weapon's impact. We knew they'd infiltrated parts of our government, our military. We couldn't expose them without tipping our hand. So we played along, negotiated the treaty, all while preparing the Confederation and our own defenses for what was coming. Lirith struggled to process this revelation. The treaty terms, the 17 systems, strategic positions, Chen confirmed, not to contain humanity, but to create a defensive perimeter against the architects. We needed those systems not for expansion, but for protection, yours and ours. Outside, Earth's orbital defenses had fully activated, and human ships were emerging from hidden positions around the planet, engaging the architect vessels with startling effectiveness. They were using tactics that seemed designed specifically to counter the architect's technology. You knew their weaknesses, Lirith realized. We've been studying them for decades, Chen nodded, feeding them misinformation while learning everything we could. Suddenly, the doors to the observation lounge slid open. Sullivan stood there, breathing hard, a weapon in his hand. "It's over, Chen," he said, aiming at the commander. "The architects have breached Earth's secondary defenses. Your resistance is futile." Chen didn't look surprised. Instead, she smiled, not the diplomatic smile from earlier, but something fiercer, almost predatory. "Is that what they told you would happen?" Before Sullivan could respond, his body convulsed. He dropped to his knees, the weapon clattering to the floor. His skin began to ripple, features distorting as if something beneath was struggling to emerge. "What's happening to him?" Lirith gasped. Chen's voice was cold. "That's not Sullivan. It never was." Sullivan, or whatever wore his form, contorted on the floor as his skin rippled and stretched. The security team moved forward, surrounding the writhing figure with weapons drawn. One of them tossed Commander Chen a small metallic device, which she caught with practice ease. "Containment field," she explained, activating it. A shimmering barrier encircled the transforming creature. Standard procedure when dealing with architect proxies. "How long have you known?" Lirith asked, unable to look away from the horrific transformation. That Sullivan was compromised, since he volunteered for this mission. Chen's expression softened slightly. The real Sullivan was a friend. We found him dead 3 months ago. This thing took his place. Through the viewport, the space battle raged with increasing intensity. Earth's forces had been joined by ships bearing Confederation markings, vessels that must have been nearby when the attack began. They fought with surprising coordination, as if they'd trained for this scenario. "You planned for everything," Vet observed, his ancient voice carrying a mix of admiration and wariness. "Not everything," Chen admitted. "We didn't know how deeply the architects had infiltrated your worlds. How many of your leaders might be compromised, like Sullivan." As if on cue, the ship's communication system chimed with a priority message. The holographic display showed an Earth admiral alongside a Confederation high commander. "Operation Firewall successful across 15 systems," the admiral reported. "The architect network is collapsing. Their infiltrators are being exposed by the radiation signature from their fleet's unique drive systems, just as you predicted, Commander." Shan acknowledged the report with a nod. "And the treaty?" The Confederation commander answered. "Emergency session has ratified it with amendments. All 17 systems granted to Earth forces for joint defense. Additional resources allocated for the containment perimeter." "And the Kralik?" Chen asked. "Already moving to secure their borders. They've requested Earth advisors." The commander's alien features formed what might have been a smile. "It seems witnessing Earth's defense of Confederation space has adjusted their perspective." The transmission ended, and Chen turned back to Lirith and Vet. Outside, the battle was winding down, the remaining architect vessels retreating or being disabled. "So, Chen said, "Now you know what humans are truly capable of." Lirith studied the human commander carefully. "You orchestrated all of this. The negotiations, the strategic positioning, even tonight's reception with the Kralik. We laid the groundwork," Chen corrected. "The rest was adaptation." The creature that had been Sullivan had finally stopped moving, settling into a form that resembled nothing in Confederation biological records. A shifting mass of translucent tissue with no discernible features. That approached the containment field cautiously. Why did they target us? What do these architects want? What most advanced civilizations want? Chen replied. Resources, territory, control. She paused, looking out at Earth glowing blue below them. They thought they could use us as weapons, violent, adaptable pawns to help them conquer the galaxy. They studied our wars, our conflicts, our capacity for destruction, and believed we would be perfect tools. What they failed to understand, she continued, was that for all our capacity for violence, humans are fundamentally builders, not destroyers. We fight to protect what matters to us. She glanced meaningfully at Lirith, and somehow the Confederation has come to matter. 3 days later, Lirith stood in the great chamber of the Confederation Council as the amended treaty was formally signed. Commander Chen represented Earth, her uniform now bearing new insignia designating her as the first human fleet admiral of the Joint Defense Force. As applause echoed through the chamber, Lirith reflected on her first impression of humans, those seemingly vulnerable creatures with no natural weapons or defenses. How wrong she had been. Humans weren't terrifying because they were predators. They were terrifying because they were survivors who had learned to turn their adaptability, their empathy, and even their capacity for self-sacrifice into the most effective weapons the galaxy had ever seen. And now, thankfully, those weapons stood between the Confederation and the darkness beyond.